This video is made possible by the lovely people over on my Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the channel or you want to get your hands on some awesome high quality STLs, then please visit patreon.com/Will at Heroic Studios. The Titanium Ranger. Apparently this guy is a fan favorite amongst the fandom. The first American-made Ranger. Since the Super Sentai Gogo V did not have a 6th Ranger, Saban took it upon himself to create the first American-made Ranger. This dude was a badass. Even just being named the Titanium Ranger, the titanium in the name, giving him that power against the rest of the Lightspeed Rangers. I didn't get any of their toys in this era when I was a kid, so I've decided to go ahead and design my own, like this titanium axe that goes from laser mode into axe mode. Yes, it is 3D printed. So to kind of go along with that awesome weapon, I have decided to go ahead and program my very own titanium morpher. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I designed it and how you can build it. So let's get into it. Let me run through exactly what I did to make the titanium morpher exactly how I designed it. In the show, all it is that this middle section here is actually the part of the morpher that opens. Now in the toy version, there is a button underneath here that you press. In the show, they don't really emphasize that. They just basically hit this button and the morphing sequence begins. Yada, yada, yada. No fun. All that, regular non-stop stuff. So the middle slider here and the lens, these things actually slide up just like that, revealing the button here. Now with the toy, this is the button that is used to actually begin the morphing sequence. You have the C button and the W button here that they just have the blinking LEDs. Now for this design, I wanted to make sure that all the buttons that was on the morpher did something, not just a printed part like I did with the Lightspeed morpher. I wanted actual buttons that did things. So the C and the W buttons actually go ahead and activate the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock LEDs on the LED ring. And they flash alternatingly and then they flash together. I guess that was meant for the calling of the other Rangers, like communicating, and then calling the Max Solar Zord. I want to say that that was what that was for. But this button right here that's in the middle actually activates the entire morphing sequence. So when you hit this button here, the black button, the middle part, which is spring loaded, will shoot up. Now I use what I had on deck in terms of springs. You can use something that doesn't have a lot less oomph to it, because my springs just whoosh, opens up and it kind of just shoots this thing up. So if you have something that's a little bit less powerful, go for it. Okay, I just use what I had on hand. So that's where the buttons and stuff come in, and under these buttons are actual buttons that connect to the Arduino that tell the LED ring what to do. These buttons, you get them on Amazon. They're in my list of materials. Check them out. I designed the buttons to actually have a little kind of claw underneath it, so it can actually go ahead and kind of grip the yellow part of the button when you go ahead and put that in there, as you can see right there. It might be a little loose, and if it is, the way I did mine is that I used a little piece of a glue dot, stuck it into the button, and then put the button on top of the real button, so it kind of stays together just like that. So real easy, simple, kind of fun, I suppose. All right, so now let's get into the LED ring. The LED ring is simple. It's a 12 LED ring that is soldered in and is attached to the LGP, which is right here. It is a very snug fit. You don't need any glue. You don't need any type of tape or anything like that. This thing just kind of snaps into this emboss here and it stays there quite well, actually. So that is then connected to the Arduino, which sits directly above it, and then the battery will sit somewhere in this area. Remember, when you're building this thing, make sure that your wire management is on point. Wire management makes it to where all this stuff is going to fit together despite any kind of tolerance issue, because tolerance stack up is a thing. It happens. At the same time, if your wires are pushing against certain components that are inside the morpher that are essential for it to work, it's not going to work right. So make sure wire management is a thing. So I kind of went ahead and made this a bit better because when you open the bottom, the Arduino actually sits on these 4 embosses. And if ever you need to charge it, there's a cutout right here between the bottom and the LGP to where you can just plug in your micro USB, charge the battery via the Arduino board. So this battery, they'll probably die after, I don't know, a few days. Plug it in, takes about 7 hours for it to charge. I usually let mine kind of hang out overnight and we go from there. Pretty easy, pretty simple. And that's pretty much the Morpher. Like, it's nothing really super duper over the top. Everything is actually really easy. I'm going to show you the tracks really quick. So inside the tracks, we have these little embosses where you put your spring, and then the top emboss for the slider goes inside of the spring too, so the spring doesn't pop out. That was a big issue when I was first designing this thing. The spring kept on popping out. So having this thing sit in little cylinders, little embosses like you see here, keeps the spring intact and it keeps it from popping out whenever you put it on there. All right, so that is it. Nothing really to it. Very easy stuff. And I also have belt loops, so if you guys want to get some Velcro or something, you can loop that underneath and actually have yourself a pretty decent looking Morpher. I did mine with glue dots because I didn't have this update when I was building my prototype and didn't feel like printing it out again. But that is the Morpher. Now let's get into showing you guys exactly what to do in building it. Okay, cool. The first thing you want to do is take the button that is going to keep the slider closed and a spring here. Now this spring is a little stiff. You can go ahead with a lighter one if you want, but it is included inside of the kit that I recommend. This is my LGP and I have made it out of PETG. PETG, especially white PETG, actually diffuses light better. Take your spring, go ahead and jam it into the opening that is on the LGP. You don't need any glue, you don't need to solder or melt anything, just stuff it in there and it's a pretty snug fit on its own. After that, take your button and take a tool, I'm using my nippers here, and push the spring down. Once it's down, go ahead and kind of ease the button in there over the 2 embosses that it sits inside, and you should have yourself a pretty neat button. Test it out, make sure that it bounces back as designed, and make sure that everything fits and feels okay. Next up, take your 3 buttons and solder the wires on there. Make sure you are doing a great job in soldering and making sure those connections are solid. Just like in my instruction manual, you only have a secondary ground. So all of these, the 3 buttons and your buzzer that we're working on, they're going to need to be soldered together and spliced in a singular ground as you see here. Next, you're going to take your buzzer and you're going to do the exact same thing, solder on your wires, your power, and your ground, and you're going to solder that ground to the Frankenstein ground to the other 3 buttons and make sure that that connection is solid as well. Next up, we're going to take our button bracket and we're actually going to install it into the back of the left and right stationary parts of the Morpher. You're going to take your button and you're going to just fit this little bracket on the back of the button. There's a little notch that fits in between the forks there. Just fit it in there. Now, each button on the left and right have unique button holders. They're not the same, including the one in the middle. So you should have 3 unique button holders. Once you get it in there, go ahead, feed it through the LGP, the wires, feed the wires through the LGP first, and then install the button with the button holder and use a screwdriver to kind of get that in there. Once you've done that, go ahead and make sure the wires are fed through your LGP, and you should have done this again with both of your buttons, and these are the C and W button. Install your springs as you see here. Like I said, you don't have to use the same springs I'm using. You can use something that has a little bit less of a spring constant. Put in your middle slider, make sure the embosses are inside of the spring as you're seeing here. Lay everything down and then at once turn it all over together. Now fix your LGP to where everything is sitting and you can see the holes, and then just start screwing in all of your screws. There are 6 holes here. You don't need to use all 6. 4 in the corners will do just fine. Next, take your middle button, go ahead and install it right in the central emboss, and then take your unique center button bracket, put it on top, screw it down, and then install your LED ring around it. The LED ring will have a nice snug fit, no need for glue. And here we go with the fun part. Now we're going to take all of our connections and solder them into the board. So while I'm doing a time-lapse soldering here, this is actually going to be the circuit you're going to be using. I'm going to explain it very briefly, so please keep up. Is the Arduino. You have 3 buttons here, button 1, button 2, button 3. All of them will go to B2, P3, and P4. These buttons all do separate things, so make sure that you are reading the instruction manual to figure out which button goes where on the Morpher. Your buzzer is going to go to P5, and your LED ring, the signal wire of that LED ring, is going to go to P6. All the grounds that you see here between the LED ring, buzzer, and buttons are all going to be spliced together into one because there's only one other secondary ground. And then of course your battery is going to be in the VN and the ground, and your LED ring power is going to be in the 5-volt pin. So there you go. That is the circuit that you're going to be building. Go ahead and start soldering in everything onto your Arduino. Lastly is your standard wire management. Now, when I designed this, I did keep into account the real estate inside of the Morpher. I didn't want it to be too big or too small because wires really do take up a lot of space. And if you have very stiff wires, you create stress on valuable components, and you don't want those components to break. So take a little bit of time. If you got to use some tape to kind of consolidate all your wires, zip ties, whatever, go ahead and do that, and make sure that when you sandwich the Morpher together, everything fits as it's supposed to. You don't feel any type of pushing or pulling sensation going on inside of your Morpher. Once you've done that, you are free to go ahead and test out your Morpher. And there you have it, folks, my very own design titanium Morpher. I wanted this to do a little bit more than just flash and blink LEDs. That's why I added the buzzer to kind of give each button press a little bit of a beep. And of course, the rapid buzzing that happens whenever you hit the morphing button. Now, I want to get a little bit more in depth with my design work. So if you're interested in seeing what Morpher I'm working on, go ahead and check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Will at Heroic Studios. Also, if you're interested in making either the Morpher or the titanium laser, those files are available until the end of this month at the time of this recording, July 27th. So these are all July rewards. So if you want to get in on that, go right ahead and go ahead and check out my Patreon. I got a lot of teasers that's coming up from August. And so, yeah, help me out. Also, I want to give a special shout out to my patrons, without which this whole thing would not be possible. You guys are awesome. You guys rock. So go ahead and like and subscribe, share the video. If you guys have any comments or questions about how I did the thing, just let me know. I'm here. I answer every comment as best as I can. So until next time, folks, take care of yourself, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.